Well, welcome back. Thank you for returning to the garage. We're now going to pass into the last stage of our agenda. I would like to make an apology. Today, we requested for Facebook to have a representative. We also requested for social media networks, who are very active in the Facebook platform, to get involved with this particular garage through Skype. Now, when we were setting the dates, this is squarely my problem and my mistake. I picked 23rd of May and I didn't look at the US calendar because we are in the middle of Memorial Day holiday in the US. So when I was putting my request out to Facebook in California and the team at Facebook and social media networks, I was effectively asking somebody who's in the middle of a driving holiday in the US whether they would like to stay on at work or at home at about 11 o'clock at night to speak with us. Now, I did get some volunteers, but we had Nick Gonzalez from Social Media Networks. If you're watching, Nick, thanks for contacting us. Contact us from his hotel room. Whilst he was prepared to do it just with the voice there, he didn't have a video camera. So I do apologise, it wasn't on the agenda. That's squarely my fault. And once again, I did go on 1 week's holiday before this garage, so apologies there if you're expecting a luminary from either Facebook or social media networks. Now, having said that, Facebook is organising these garages on a collaborative basis, so please get involved with the forthcoming third garage. And once again, I turn to the speakers, KK, James and Toby. I'll be leaning on you guys, and to our audience members, please get actively involved with putting together the third garage. Even a date hasn't even been set. All right, that's enough of my voice. We're going to open up the forum now. I'm going to walk around and I'm going to start my pleading pacing up and down. And I want to ask you whether you have any further questions of our speakers, Toby, James and KK, or any general questions about what you've heard, or whether you would like to share with us some of your current Facebook experiences, whether it be just as a user, as a developer. And I do know, having spoken with Candy and Renee, that you are in the middle of quite sizable Facebook application development programs. So can I get a volunteer from our group just to give us a bit of background about what some of the work you're doing, just to open it up and keep our online audiences. Renee, are you prepared to have a chat with us?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What are you doing? Where are you from and who are you? Let's start that way.
I am project manager for a company called ExtraCorp. In ExtraCorp, we manage a few websites. One of our websites is footytips.com.au, plus a few other ones. We're currently obviously looking at Facebook and the success that Facebook has had for the last year or so, which has been around 2-3 years, whatever. And we want to obviously get onto that bandwagon, right? So we heard about the garage and we thought we're right in the midst of like you were mentioning, developing our Facebook app for some of our apps. And so here we are, and we wanted to obviously find out what's all about. A few things like how you make a successful Facebook app, and from the marketing point of view and from the development point of view. So that's been great so far. But I do have a question, and it's for all of you. We've seen the problems that MySpace has had in the last few years, for a year or so. What is stopping Facebook for following the same trend? And because obviously, whatever happens to Facebook and whatever happens to any companies that involved or advertising in Facebook is going to affect them as well. So, and to me, and speaking to my personal point of view, and probably from my company's point of view as well, we are worried that something may happen to Facebook that may affect, obviously, anybody's involved with it. So, what do you guys think about that?
KK, would you like to start by taking that question?
Yeah. Basically, there's a huge difference between Facebook and MySpace, and if you like, MySpace is a stepping stone for the Facebook, because the reason I didn't get into in my presentation why Facebook is so successful, and there are several reasons for that. In fact, there is a subject being offered in Stanford University.
Getting feedback.
There's a subject offered in Stanford University on psychology of Facebook, and the study is about why Facebook is so successful. And the reason, some of the reasons that they've found out is that it's simple to use, and it is open source, and there are a lot of content in the Facebook for people to be engaged throughout the cycle. And the question does arise, how long is Facebook going to last? And going back, I mean, for you to understand how long it's going to last, you need to understand how quickly and how well it has grown. If you look at it, like probably 18 months, 19 months, it's really taken off, because the Facebook was started in 2004, but for 2 years it was just amongst college. And when they opened up, it grew very fast. And then once they started the application, which doesn't exist in MySpace, by the way, and now they're looking into getting application back into MySpace.
Can I just interrupt and make a question? Just to clarify your question in a little bit more detail, Renee, when you're saying the problems with MySpace, are you alluding to advertising, or are you alluding to... what's the problem? Just to put your finger on that.
Well, it has a lot of problems, spamming, problems with privacy issues. Obviously, Facebook's taken that really seriously, and it's been already talked about on their presentations. But mainly about bad publicity behind MySpace, especially with mainly concentrated on privacy issues. But I know they've taken a few steps, but again, we didn't know that was going to happen a few years ago with MySpace. So what may happen with Facebook, we don't know what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the analogy I've drawn is Facebook's like Windows. In some ways, you need to think about it more like you do any other platform. But there's some significant differences and risks, and I think privacy is probably not such an issue for Facebook, because they've seen exactly what's happened to MySpace, and those early generation of applications almost created a backlash against Facebook, which is why now there's this really stringent system in place of thresholds and all of this kind of stuff. But I think then some of the risks become even riskier because they're unpredictable. And at the moment, some of the vibe I'm seeing with early adopters, so these are people who actually understand what Twitter is for. So they're a very small percentage of actual internet users. The main sort of vibe that's going on about Facebook at the moment is that it's closed, and so it's actually anti-web in some ways. So that becomes an interesting one, because then that's tied up with Microsoft's investment. Because then there's a fairly strong anti-Microsoft sentiment for very similar reasons. So what's tied in with that is the fact that Facebook's app platform is like Windows in another respect, in that it's locking people in to a particular platform, essentially. And that's where the MySpace stuff becomes more interesting, because I think as developers, you need to start being agnostic about your approach to this. So Facebook is one platform, and MySpace have their own now, and so you will develop for that as well, and you'll actually be across. And if one of them backlashes, you'll turn it off. You'll get out of there as soon as you can, which affects your investment, and exactly.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, it's funny you mentioned Microsoft, because I just happened to read this morning an article saying that Microsoft might be looking at buying Facebook.
Yeah, so that's the rumor going around.
It's
Tied in with
rumor,
Yahoo search or something was the other one I read.
That's
so
right.
Tying Yahoo search with Facebook with whatever other Microsoft web properties there are. So that, I think, is where some of these rumors about Facebook being a closed system are starting to come up. Because one of the things that happens is, I don't know about your social network in the